Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
So if you truly want all of the restrictions removed and all of your personal freedoms restored, then I would ask you to do your part. Get vaccinated.
Saskatchewan is still locked down hard. Not as hard as Alberta is or Ontario, but it's still bad there, and it is so unfair. But it's not going to stay that way if we at Rebel News have anything to do with it. But, as always, we need your help to fight back. Sheila Gunn Reid for Rebel News here. And did you know that Saskatchewan is still under heavy lockdown restrictions? Just take a look at this from the government website. In Regina, specifically, the following venues are closed: banquet and conference facilities, community halls, galleries, museums, libraries, live and movie theaters, performing arts facilities, that's important, we'll get to that one later, bowling alleys, car shows, racing and rodeo facilities, arcades, trade shows, science centers and auctions, except for livestock sales. Then, across the province of Saskatchewan, mandatory masking province-wide in indoor public spaces, all private dwelling indoor gatherings, so friends, that's your home, are limited to a household only. Basically, all of Saskatchewan is grounded. The government says you can't have friends over. Outdoor gatherings are limited to a maximum of 10 people. People in attendance must also ensure that physical distancing of at least 2 meters between households is maintained. No alcohol sales after 10 p.m. in licensed establishments because I guess Corona comes to the bar to party at 10:01. Science, you guys. Casinos and bingo halls must close. VLTs in facilities outside of casinos and bingo halls are permitted. Personal care services must reduce customer capacity by 50%. Capacity will be restricted to 30 people at all arenas, live theaters, movie theaters, performing arts venues, and other facilities, no matter the square footage. Indoor public banquets, conferences, wedding and funeral receptions in public venues will be limited to 30 people. Food or beverages may not be present or served. So a banquet, you can have a banquet, friends, but you just can't serve a banquet. All team, group, sports activities, games, competitions, recitals, practices, etc. are suspended, including amateur and recreational leagues for all age groups. Examples include curling, hockey, racket sports, cheerleading, dance practices, and group settings. The total number of people participating in worship services cannot exceed 30. But, as always, retail services are treated much better than churches. Retail must reduce their capacity to 50% as prescribed in the public health order. Large big box retailers, as defined in the public health order, must reduce to 25% of capacity. Holy moly, those are a lot of restrictions. But as is the case across the majority of the free Western world, the COVID statistics on the ground just don't support a lockdown. There are only 1,382 active cases in Saskatchewan as I'm filming this video. In a province of 1.81 million people, just, slightly smaller than the population of Greater Edmonton. But look at that little note beside the active cases there. Active case count may be an overestimate. Active cases are calculated by subtracting deaths and recovered cases from total cases. So the government is clearly overestimating the corona cases, and they're acknowledging it. Now, some of you may already know that at Rebel News, we are launching a charter challenge to the lockdown in Saskatchewan. No government can make a law that does not respect the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. At Rebel News, we filed our charter challenge in the Court of Queen's Bench in Saskatchewan, and we did this after these unconstitutional, unscientific, nonsensical lockdown restrictions canceled an event we wanted to host with Dr. Patrick Moore at the Connexus Arts Center in Regina. It makes absolutely no sense at this point to continue to cancel that event or any event in Saskatchewan, and it makes no sense to drastically limit the civil liberties of Saskatchewan residents. You can see all of our affidavits and help fund our legal challenge at opensaskatchewan.com. Now, our lawyer Sarah Miller from JSS Barristers is the lead lawyer on our charter challenge in Saskatchewan, and she already has an established history of making the Saskatchewan government back off. Miller has already secured a victory for one church in Saskatchewan, the Full Gospel Outreach Center, after the pastor there, Vern Temple, was fined $14,000 for allowing his congregation to sing without masks on. Sarah Miller's also fighting for Pastor Art Pulowski here in Alberta. Pastor Art went to jail for 2 days for holding church services, and Miller has been working for over a year to systematically get his COVID tickets that he receives for feeding the homeless tossed out of court after the cops continued to hand out tickets to him for giving sandwiches to the forgotten people on Calgary streets. The cops call these things illegal public gatherings. All this is to say, Miller is one of the best in the business, and she cares deeply about civil liberties for everyone, and she's been fighting hard during the entire pandemic. Now let's get an update from Sarah Miller about the progress of our charter challenge to the lockdown in Saskatchewan here.
So with the Saskatchewan Charter Challenge, we've filed a challenge against the lockdown measures in Saskatchewan, which have prevented any gatherings and things like that. What we have found is that this is moving very slowly. The court hasn't been moving it forward as quickly as some of the other judicial review applications. We're currently at a stage where we've received evidence from the Saskatchewan government or their council, so that it has been reviewed. We're looking at cross-examining some of their witnesses. That's still under consideration. We're strategizing on that. But that would ordinarily be the next step. And of course, the government lawyers could in turn choose to cross-examine our witnesses. So it's moving slowly, but in the right direction, hopefully. And Saskatchewan has made some noise in media lately to say that they're going to be opening up this summer. And so hopefully this can be more of an academic exercise to say they've done something wrong in the past, more so than a continuing fight that we have to have with the Saskatchewan government regarding what's happening today. So hopefully this summer, Saskatchewan people will be a bit more liberated, and in the meantime, we'll go and fight so we can prevent this type of thing, hopefully, from happening in the future.
And now when you say that you are looking to cross-examine examine their witnesses, who would those be?
So they've provided 2 affiants in support of the measures that have been in place. I don't have their names off the top of my head, but they're 2 government workers in the public health circle in Saskatchewan who have laid out some reasons for the restrictions. Our response has been, that's fine, but there are reasonable ways to restrict, liberties of Saskatchewan people, and then there are unreasonable ways. And so our argument is anchoring on this is unreasonable. There's reasonable ways to have gatherings, particularly outdoor gatherings, social distance gatherings, to work cooperatively with what 2 camps really believe is the best way forward, right? We have the government on one side saying no gatherings whatsoever, be masked, stay separate, and then we're saying, okay, well, yeah, there's, the other camp that says none of that. And if we go somewhere in the middle, that's probably reasonable to satisfy both groups. So our angle is to say, this is what we think is reasonable. And it's not that far side of where the government is. It's got to be something that allows for more gatherings, more association, more assembly. And so we've suggested some evidence that says, well, we could have the Dr. Moore event in Saskatchewan with 700 people, say, or 800 people, not 10 in a building that could hold 2,000, not 20 in a building that could hold 2,000. That's not reasonable. That's not a reasonable restriction on our constitutional rights. So that's that's our angle so far. That's the evidence that we've put in so far. And to cross-examine the witnesses would flesh some of that out, hopefully.
We're trying to raise $150,000 to fight for the civil liberties of Saskatchewan residents at that special website I just mentioned, opensaskatchewan.com. Now, we're already helping so many people fight their lockdown tickets in Saskatchewan through fightthefines.com, our civil liberties initiative. But we want the lockdown restrictions responsible for punishing people with these fines thrown out altogether. Can you help? Sarah's already working hard, but there is so much work left to do. If you'd like to help us lift the lockdown in Saskatchewan, please donate today at opensaskatchewan.com. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. Saskatchewan residents are still receiving lockdown tickets for just trying to go about their regular lives. We want to put a stop to that. And one of the best ways to put a stop to it is to challenge the lockdown in court. We are proceeding with a charter challenge to the Saskatchewan lockdown. It's going to be expensive, but we think it's worth it. Civil liberties always are. If you'd like to help us, please donate today at opensaskatchewan.com.